I thought this was a great story. I was obviously very nervous about seeing Alex Smith back out there, as if anyone who has seen the documentary or knows anything about the injuries and what he's been through was obviously a little anxiety when he got out there, but he had an incredible comeback.
Okay, so doesn't this beg the question? So they made the playoffs, they've got the coach, they have a championship defense. Aren't they Sam Darnold's spot? Who's out there, Mark? I mean, to me, we said this 2 weeks ago. Chicago and Washington have winning record, playoffs, championship defense, and a coach that has a winning record. Why aren't the Bears and Washington going after? You tell me. I
don't know. I mean, they need a quarterback.
Well, this morning Washington does now.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to run it with Taylor Heineke.
No, that's a backup.
So, either they draft someone or they make a trade and move up in the draft.
Well,
I don't know. I think that I think this is a great spot for Sam Darnold. What's kind of interesting is you're describing Washington, and obviously Washington has been more dysfunctional as of late than the Steelers, but like Washington won their division and went to the playoffs. They have a good defense and they have their coach, and they're like, obviously we need to get a quarterback. And the Steelers are like, nah, we'll try it again. Same thing. It's cool. We're just making the playoffs now.
It is interesting. Like that is very 19. We said this last week. It's very 1975 NFL. We made the playoffs. Let's bring all the old guys back. Washington's like, we made the playoffs. We're upgrading at that position. That's the way you should do it.
And that guy's beloved in the building.
Yeah.
So the Lakers led by as many as 35 points on the way to their 117-91 victory over the Warriors last night. LeBron scored 19 and played a season-low 24 minutes in the blowout. This one was their second straight after snapping their 4-game losing streak Friday night. They also got Dennis Schroeder back, who contributed 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 6 assists. Kyle Kuzma also had 12 points and 11 rebounds. To me, this whole season is a story about LeBron, because I don't know why everyone was so high on Anthony Davis at the end of the bubble and assumed that this was going to be an MVP season for him. I don't consider Anthony Davis to be the 1A in that spot. It's LeBron still. Like, there's this idea it's going to be a passing of the baton. First of all, LeBron's still the best player in the league, so I don't know who he's passing it to. Certainly not on his own team, if he's the better player on his own team. But I always felt like Schroeder was the bigger part of the story here. And
he's the Drew Holiday of the Milwaukee Bucks, but he's not the big name of AD. They're 7-1, the Lakers are, with Schroeder and LeBron and no AD. They're fine without him. I mean, again, to win the championship?
Yeah, they're going to need AD to win a championship, of course. But to get through, everyone was panicking. To me, it's like, okay, they can figure it out when they get Schroeder back. And Schroeder's not injured. He was out because of COVID protocols.
Which, by the way, he complained. He said, I never had it. I tested every day. So Schroeder is not going to be like fatigued with COVID. He came out and literally criticized.
He wasn't sick.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's how this goes. Like, if you have contact tracing, you have to be out. But LeBron still has the best odds right now, according to Fox Bet, for the MVP. Joel Embiid is second, and Nikola Jokic is third. I think this is a year for LeBron to win an MVP.
Well, that'd be quite a reach.
I know. It's dramatic.
Nutty. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Good stuff. Mark Cuban, top of next hour. It's interesting. Luka, his star, I was just talking to Mark the other day about this, is that Luka's better than Dirk at this point. Like, Dirk took a while to become Dirk Nowitzki. Like, Luka walked into this league at 19, and you're like, he could be the all-time leading scorer. Like, it's not, you watch the way the NBA now is shooting threes, it's not a ridiculous thing to say that Luka getting 4 threes a night is going to score faster than even Kareem. I mean, Karl Malone ended up like third all-time. We never, out of Louisiana Tech, thought Karl Malone would be it. When you start playing and scoring 25 a night at 19 years old, you're going to end up on that tote board at the very top. So Mark Cuban's got himself a star. The question is, who's he going to get alongside him? Because Dallas has strangely struggled, I don't know why, in the free agent market in the NBA. You'd think Cuban, the marketer, would be able to land these guys, and for some reason they haven't. I'm going to ask him about it top next hour. Joining me now, Albert Breer, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing lead strategist, Monday morning quarterback. So I see where a leading columnist in town said it's time to trade. John McClain said, listen, let's move off to Deshaun Watson. It does seem, it's funny. We as a staff, we talked about this morning. In the NBA, it's understood. You lose the star, you lose the trade. You just try to get back as much as you can.
Yeah.
But Albert, that's not the way the NFL works. It is not. The Patriots moved off stars all the time. Herschel Walker, Cowboys dynasty was built on that. This is a great college football quarterback draft next year. Yeah. There's not really an overwhelming one. It's supposed to be one of the leaner quarterback years. Could I not argue? It's a great time if you have to move him. This is the time to move him.
Well, there are a few things at play here, Colin. I think the first thing is they don't have to do anything right now. There's no roster bonus due in March. The start of free agency isn't really going to affect Deshaun Watson's value. He's not Carson Wentz or Sam Darnold, where when seats start filling up, quarterbacking seats across the NFL, like now all of a sudden you won't be able to get true value back for him. He's a good enough player where his value is going to hold. And so the Texans have, a good 6-7 weeks until the NFL draft to try and get him back on board. And there's nothing more valuable than a 25-year-old franchise quarterback. So I can 100% understand why, for right now at least, they would take the time to try and amend the situation. I also think that there's going to be some pressure from other owners on the Texans not to do this. And I know that's technically illegal and everything else, but I think there are other teams in the NFL that are looking at this and saying, uh-oh, like this isn't Sam Darnold or Carson Wentz getting traded. This is a young franchise quarterback potentially forcing his way out. And so it'll be interesting to see how that piece of it might affect things going forward. Again, the Texans don't have any reason to move forward with any sort of speed right now. To me, the deadline is the NFL draft because that's when you can get a current year pick. And if you are going to have to replace Deshaun Watson, that's when you would do it. You don't have to do it right now.
All right. J.J. Watt is one of the few NFL defensive guys with a brand. He's on his Instagram. I see in regards to where he wants to go, who's on the narrow list and who is off the narrow list for his services.
Well, I think where he wants to go and where the best money might be could be two different things. The Steelers and the Packers are, I think, at the top of his list for obvious reasons. His brother's in Pittsburgh. Obviously he's from Wisconsin. And so, those two places, contenders, they're comfortable for him. Both those places would be great for him. The question with both those places is what sort of cap space do they have to make it work for him financially? And really, that's a moving target for both those teams right now because we don't know where the salary cap is going to be, which I think has sort of delayed a little bit of this process for him. Now, you could look at other teams like Indianapolis, like Buffalo, like Tennessee, that might have a little bit more space to work with, and those teams can offer him the chance to contend as well. And so he has good options across the board. It's going to come down, I think, to sort of what he values and how fast all of this happens. Timing does matter. Again, when the cap is set, that's going to affect all of this. I would think that Pittsburgh and Green Bay would still be at the top of his list. The question is how fast those teams are willing to move and how the cap affects all of that.
What I'm kind of looking at the Washington football team now, and Joy just reported that Alex Smith is out. I saw that right before I came on the show. And I think to myself, championship defense, Ron Rivera did a great job early, bad division. You get a decent quarterback, you could run on this thing for a lot of years. Sort it out for me. Where is Washington on a quarterback? What are you hearing?
Well, they were never going to spend $19 million on Alex Smith. And quite honestly, like the stuff that came out in the GQ article, I think ruffled some feathers there and maybe sped up the process a little bit where they're separating from him now rather than maybe waiting another week or two. Regardless, he was not going to be there on that number. And I do think that they feel comfortable right now with Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen while they peruse the market. So I think they're going to look at some reasonable options. If Teddy Bridgewater becomes available, if he's cut, then, that'd be an obvious landing spot for him. He's got the background with their offensive coordinator, Scott Turner. Same goes for Cam Newton. He'd be somebody that they could kick the tires on. Ryan Fitzpatrick could be a stopgap. But I'm telling you, Colin, this is a team that is going to be looking at taking a big swing as well. So while they look at some of those options, they're also going to want to kind of keep the flexibility in place where if they can take a big swing at a Deshaun Watson, they've got the capital to go and do it. We saw them take a big swing at Matthew Stafford. Their offer to Detroit for Matthew Stafford was a first round and a third round pick. They are willing to take that sort of big swing on a quarterback, but it's going to have to be a truly elite guy. They viewed Stafford as a truly elite guy. Maybe there's somebody they see in that way in the draft. They haven't gone through that process quite yet. Maybe that guy's Deshaun Watson, but I think a big piece of what they're doing at the quarterback position is going to be maintaining flexibility so when that opportunity comes along, they can take their swing.
All right. What are your sources saying, Albert Breer joining us, on Russell Wilson over the last 2 weeks, just laying it out there and going public and being hyper aggressive? What are your people saying on that?
You know, Colin, I think if you asked me a week ago, I would have been like 80-20. He stays in Seattle. I mean, now I'm maybe closer to like 60-40, 55-45. I think the Seahawks are a little sick of the drama, to be quite honest with you. And it just feels that way to me right now. Like, they're sick of dealing with this year in and year out and having to hear about these things, through the media, through different shows that Russell Wilson appears on. And, they did meet with him after the season. Russell met with his team. And really the three things that Russell Wilson has laid out that he wants: number one, he wanted a new offensive philosophy. He's on board with the hire of Shane Waldron as their offensive coordinator. So that box is checked. That leaves two more boxes. Number one,